Hello there, this is John Girardi from Right to Life of Central California, bringing you another video in our series of videos we're doing throughout 40 Days for Life. 40 Days for Life is an international campaign of prayer and presence outside of abortion clinics worldwide. If you want to learn more about Fresno's campaign, you can go to rtlcc.org. Today we're talking about Proposition 14. This is a state ballot initiative that we at Right to Life of Central California are opposing. It's going to be on your ballot in the November ballot. And basically, it is a $5.5 billion bond to fund the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine, the state's stem cell research entity. We talked yesterday on the show about the problem with embryonic stem cell research, which is what the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine kind of specializes in. Basically, it requires the destruction of human embryos in order to extract their stem cells. It also doesn't work very well. Basically, embryonic stem cell research has yielded very little in the way of cures and treatments, and the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine in particular has accomplished almost nothing. We're going to dig into that legacy of failure on today's video right now. So, the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine was founded in 2004 with the state ballot initiative, Proposition 71. This was a $3 billion bond measure to found and fund the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine. And the focus was embryonic stem cell research. That was the focus. California was mad that President George W. Bush had cut off all federal funding for embryo destructive stem cell research, and California wanted to stand in the gap. Now, in spite of all the promise that surrounded embryonic stem cell research, it turns out that this was not really the best path forward. What we learned with embryonic stem cell research is basically embryonic stem cells will subdivide into every single part of the human body. Okay, imagine a human being who's only 4 cells big. Okay, those 4 cells are going to subdivide into every single part of the human body. Brain tissue, bone tissue, nervous system tissue. Every single part of the human body is going to come from those initial cells. Well, in the context of the living human organism, those stem cells can divide very rapidly and very helpfully. But when they are removed from the embryo and used in an attempt to treat various maladies in lab rats, what happened more often than not was you had cells very rapidly dividing, but not in a controlled way. And what do you call cells very rapidly dividing in an uncontrolled fashion? Well, you call that cancer. And so embryonic stem cell research became this kind of dead end. It really wasn't very useful for treating different kinds of conditions because the very nature of embryonic stem cells is that they're not really, they subdivide very quickly and cause cancer. Now, a lot of researchers trying to continue to justify the use of cells from embryos and the destruction of embryos tried to say, well, all we've got to do is figure out a way to use embryonic stem cells in a way so that they don't cause tumors. And the problem with that is that it's like trying to say, I'd really love to get a pet elephant. As long I want it to be as big as an elephant, as wide as an elephant, as broad as an elephant, as tall as an elephant. I just don't want it to be heavy like an elephant. Well, if you have something that's big like an elephant, looks like an elephant, talks like an elephant, is the same size as an elephant, it has to weigh as much as an elephant. It's part of the nature of the thing. You can't have cells that are rapidly dividing in a sort of uncontrolled way and not have it become cancer. So, because of this focus on embryonic stem cell research, the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine has been a near unmitigated flop. In an investigation in 2018, the San Francisco Chronicle concluded that the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine had not yet produced a single FDA-approved cure or treatment. Not one. This was in spite of all the grandiose promises by the promoters of the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine back in 2004 that they would find cures for Alzheimer's, cures for paralysis, that even though it was going to cost the state more than $3 billion in this bond measure, we'd more than make up with it from the revenue that we get from the creation of all of these new cures and treatments. And they simply have not materialized. Instead, that $3 billion in bond measures was used to build a bunch of shiny, fancy new labs, give a bunch of big fat grants to huge universities like Stanford with $10 billion plus endowments that certainly don't need the money. Stanford University made more off of Proposition 71 than anyone did. And all of that money, all of that expense, all of that lost life in the form of destroyed embryos. And what do we have to show for it? Nothing. And in spite of that embarrassing lack of success, the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine and its supporters come back asking for more. This time, not $3 billion. Through Proposition 14, they want $5.5 billion. We can't let that happen. It's a huge waste of money. It's a disgraceful destruction of human life. This deserves a no vote. Right to Life of Central California is a nonprofit. We generally don't take positions on things during elections. We can't take positions on individual politicians who run in races, and we can't take positions on political parties. But we can take positions on pieces of legislation, and that includes Proposition 14. That's why we're encouraging a no vote on Proposition 14. For Right to Life of Central California, I'm John Girardi.